titles. I also hear that you had to climb back up the ladder to get to Sweet Heat. Why? Because we're also TT. Top tier. No one's on our level. We're the champs, baby. Keep watching greatness.
We are the greatest thing WoW has ever seen. Because you can't outgame us, and you sure can't outfame us.
Definitely can't outfame us. And you know, I'm getting so tired of hearing about the Tonga twins and how strong and how powerful they are. But you know, there's one thing that I don't hear. The word winner. Why? Because Sweet Heat, we're the winners. And that's exactly what we're going to do to you again. Win, win, win.
We are at the top of the ladder. We are the WoW Tag Team Champions. And this belt is going nowhere, Tonga. So you bring it.
And we're going to walk out there like money, money, money. And these championship titles are going to stay around our beautiful skinny waist. Skin T. So bring it and we'll see you there.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame. And I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and, well, what do you know? It's been 50 weeks, almost a full year for WoW Women of Wrestling. This is the absolute longest run that they have had on well, they've already bypassed their longest run mark, but the fact that they made it up to 50 episodes, they have really gotten some legs underneath them. This is the longest run of episodes that they've had in any incarnation of this show, from 2001 to present day. And I know some people out there are like, 2001, yeah, WoW existed back in 2001. It just didn't last long because they did the same thing that they had been doing up until this point. They would do a season and then they would stop and, you know, whatever. And those stopping of the seasons never really worked out for them. So somebody somewhere decided that they just need to keep on going, like every other wrestling company in the world. And lo and behold, it seems to work out for them. So it is episode 50. We are almost at a full year of WoW and whatever it is that they do. So congratulations to them. I think this kind of entitles or requires a year in review for everything that they've done. And, you know, maybe I'll work on that. But before we get into the review, let's get into some news and notes. And I have to say, you know, I got my coffee here so that I can get me some caffeine and a burst of energy, because as I'm recording this, it is almost 4 a.m. in the morning. That is correct. It is almost 4 o'clock in the morning where I am, because I've been busy all day long. And I did not want to shortchange myself because I don't want to do this tomorrow. So I say, all right, let's get juiced up with some caffeine and hit it. So here we are. So the first thing I want to bring up is Mickie James has returned to the ring. Good on her. You know, she had to step down in March from Impact Wrestling due to her injury. I think she had a last match in March, and then she relinquished the title in April. And I know one of the things that they had going on at the time was, you know, you can't do this match, but we'll wait till next month. And if by next month you can't do it, then, you know, you have to vacate the title, which is what she did. So in any case, it's been a while since Mickie James, let me say her name right, since Mickie James has been in the wrestling ring, and she made her return at Rev Pro. She took a skip across the pond and she stepped into Rev Pro and had her match. Now, this was a mixed tag match that she was in, but it is still the first match that she's had back in some time. So bravo to her that she was able to make a recovery and get back in this thing. I think she faced off against Alex Windsor and Hyann in a triple threat. Well, I shouldn't say mixed tag. I am incorrect there. I apologize. It was a triple threat for the Rev Pro British Women's Championship. So there you have it. Now, I'm sure that she pretty much probably felt great. I mean, if you looked at her, I believe this is her Twitter. Well, do we call it Twitter anymore? I mean, it's such a stupid thing to say X. Boy, I tell you, that Elon Musk, boy, he might be a genius in some things, but this is not one of them. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. So I want to read a little bit of what she said and her return in an interview the post-match interview. This is from her interview with Muscle Man Malcolm. I feel good. I think it was a reset I needed. That I didn't really need a break, if you will, that I didn't really understand. Basically saying, her body told her to slow down. And she did. And now that she was forced into doing it, she got back. But she continues and says, I felt like I was doing great and really on a roll. It kind of sucked in the moment, but actually having time off and being able to spend the summer with Donovan, that's her child, and take time to let the bone heal correctly. We have this desire. We feel like we need to. Oh no, I can just keep going. Spiritually, I think too. I needed a little time, a little break. I'm feeling good now. That entire interview is available for you to find. I think all you need to do is look up Muscle Man Malcolm, and you can listen to the entirety of that interview. But Mickie James has returned. She's back. And so, bravo. We're happy to hear that. As I'm recording this, which one was it? All Out has taken place. And we got ourselves, was All Out? No, it was All In. All In. All In was at Wembley Stadium in London, England. And congratulations to Saraya. She won the Women's World Championship in her home, I guess I'd say home country. I was going to say her hometown, but this is her home country. In front of, and AEW has made this very clear, they're standing on their record, the largest paying audience for pro wrestling in wrestling history. Now, I'm sure there are some people going to be like, how is that even possible? WWE did that all the time. Look at WrestleMania. But you got to keep in mind, and this has been noted on a couple of occasions, even by some of the wrestling media, is that a lot of the reason that they get these crazy numbers is that they inflate them. And they being the WWE. They inflate the numbers by adding in not just paying customers. They add in the people that they gave comp tickets to. They add in the people that's working behind the scenes with WWE. They add in the people that's working in the building. They add in some of the people allegedly that that are outside of the building, working like the parking lot and whatnot. So even though the WWE lists themselves as we broke an attendance record at 100,000 or whatever it happens to be, when you include all of those, the workers, the comp tickets, and whatever else that may be in there, it may not necessarily be, 100,000 people as they, over 100,000 people as they said at the last WrestleMania that they was calling like, we shattered the world record. Tony Khan or somebody within Tony Khan's camp was very specific about saying that this is the largest paying audience. So everybody that they counted bought a ticket. And side note, you have to know, you have got to know that the WWE is going to do everything in their power to break that. You have to know that they're going to try to do this. I don't know when, probably most likely WrestleMania, because that's the event that they can really kind of pack people in and stick them in the stadium. But you got to know that if that got around to Vince McMahon by any stretch of the imagination, he is going to lose his damn mind and try to break that record one way or the other. But anyway, getting back to the point, that's just a side note. Saraya did win the championship. I was concerned about it. I watched the match. I know that she says her neck and her back are, feeling better, but man, I gotta say, even knowing that, it still kind of puts me on edge watching her wrestle sometimes, because there are points in the matches, and I'm not saying that this is one of them, but there's points in the matches where she seemingly avoids taking, major bumps, and she probably needs to do that. When you looked at this one, at the beginning of it, she didn't really go down all that much, although she did take some pretty big bumps there. The most notable that I can think of off the top of my head was Hikaru Shida coming off the top rope with a missile dropkick and just drilling Saraya. That was a pretty big bump. But I shouldn't say shocked. I just get a question about the nerves when she's in there, because they're like, man, there was a point in time where she felt like she was made of tissue paper, and I don't know if I want to see her get in the ring and get screwed up. Any given time you go into a wrestling match, regardless of what people think about wrestling, and I know there's a lot of people that's out there who, not like us, we're generally wrestling fans. If you listen to this, you're obviously a wrestling fan, and more specifically a women's wrestling fan. But any given day or night that you're in a wrestling ring, there's the possibility of injury, regardless of what people like, it's fake, or it's choreographed, this, that, whatever the outside world may think of it. Wrestling is a brutal, physical, contact sport, and it can break bones, and it has broken bones. So just knowing that is kind of like, ooh. I'm glad she made it through, and I hope that she continues to do well. And it gave her maybe the biggest moment of her wrestling career. Possibly. She won that, and she won it in front of a huge crowd with her parents and brothers at ringside. And they got to hop the rail at the end and come on in and give her a big hug and everything. So I'm sure that was probably a dream of a lifetime for her. And she deserves congratulations. Now, it should also be noted that Mercedes Moné was shown in the crowd at All In. Where they're going to go with that, if they go somewhere with that, don't know. But she was there. And she is a free agent. She can go where she wants, and she can do what she wants. So if she pops up at AEW for any given reason to go after the championship, let us not be surprised. Tony Khan was asked about the lack of women following, the show with their, how they like to have their all-in media scrums and what have you. Lyric Swinton of Women's Wrestle Talk asked him a question, which is essentially, why didn't we see any other women there? And why was there only one women's match on the card? I would like to say that Tony Khan answered the question, but there's a portion of me is like, did he really though? That it kind of reminds me of what I said about some of these promos that took place in a while. I was like, there's a a real method of them saying a lot of things, but not really saying all that much. And although there is an answer in here, I don't know if it answers why you didn't see any other, the other women and why you didn't have another match necessarily, especially considering that this show sold without having a match announced. But here was his answer, or at least here's a portion of his answer as to why they only had one women's match and why there were no other women on the show. I think the pacing of the show tonight was probably the best we've ever had, the best show we've ever done. So I think adding any more would have been challenging. Also, we have so many stars across both the men's and women's divisions, great wrestlers. I tried to pace it perfectly, and I think we did pretty great. So, and he has a longer version of that. I want to say that first, because you can go and you can seek it out and you can listen to the entirety of it. But that snippet, he basically was saying that the show was built perfectly in the way that it was presented. In his words, the pacing. And having any other match thrown into that would ruin the pacing of the show. That, I guess, sounds like a reasonable answer, but I don't know if it answers why Athena or Willow Nightingale or Chris Statlander were not there. And it also, for me, doesn't necessarily answer like, all right, well, what about the opening of the show? What about that? Is that not a is that part of the pacing as well, to have the free pre-show meet up with everything that's going on here? You couldn't squeeze in a women's match in that one? I would tend to think that you can, but I'm not there looking over his roster of what he wants to accomplish. Tony Khan has had a lot of criticism as it relates to his women's wrestling division. I mean, the pay-per-view is one thing, but this is pretty much a common occurrence in that you basically have about one women's match in any given show that he does. In most of the pay-per-views and in pretty much whatever TV show's doing, Collision, Rampage, Dynamite. It's I can't say it's a mystery, but I can't think of anything better to say. It's a mystery as to why he doesn't perceive it that way, why he doesn't figure them to be worth putting in. Maybe the numbers are saying it. Maybe the numbers are saying they're a poor segment on the show. I don't know. I should probably try to look it up. And if that's the case, then he probably should do something else to circumvent that and try to help this out. But as it is right now, there are two things we got of this. One, they still got some work to do on their entire division. I don't understand why they got two different women's championships on that show. But that's a whole different thing. And the second thing is congratulations to Saraya for winning the women's championship in AEW. I guess now it's going to be a question of how long is she going to hold on to this thing? How long is she going to hold on to this thing, and will it be a significant run? Time will tell. Other news that's going on, and I want to definitely make sure that I get this one out. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong are going to make a return for one more time to the ring. Now, why would they do this exactly? Because Impact Wrestling is going to be putting on Impact 1000, their 1000th episode, which has shown that Awesome Kong will be coming back for that episode. Gail Kim did a promo which essentially said, if Awesome Kong is coming back for the 1000th episode of Impact, then I'm coming back too. And she was my greatest rival. Now she's going to be my greatest partner. And she essentially said that anybody else that is stepping into into that position of that match, you're either going to be with them or you're going to be against them. So there you have it. I do believe that they have some. Who did they say that's going to tag with them? I got to scroll up now. Hold on, hang on. There's Purrazzo. Deonna Purrazzo. Nope. Sorry. Looking at the wrong thing. Trinity and Jordynne Grace. Trinity and Jordynne Grace are to team with Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. So that should be interesting. And I think there is still a 5th spot available for them. As I'm looking at the graphic shows that it's going to be a 5-on-5, which is also going to feature the return of the Beautiful People, which is maybe the most celebrated female faction in women's wrestling. And I say that with all due respect to Pretty Empowered. I say that with all due respect to the Fabulous Four. But the Beautiful People have been around for, gosh, it had to have been since at least about 2006 in some incarnation or another. And they've done this for a long time. You know, not just a long time, and seemingly across various promotions, even if they've changed the name. And by they, I should say not Velvet Sky, Angelina Love. So you've got that. It should be interesting to see where that goes. The lineup right now for this 5-on-5 is listed as Trinity, Jordynne Grace, Awesome Kong with I can't even say her name, Raisha Saeed, so, a.k.a. Cheerleader Melissa, and Gail Kim. And they have question marks for the final person. So we don't know who the 5th member is going to be at the moment. But their opponents are going to be, and this is why I was reading Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna Purrazzo, Giselle Shaw, Savannah Evans, Angelina Love, with Velvet Sky, and I can't even see the other person that they got in the corner. So they also have a 5th partner who is yet to be named. So I was already interested in looking at the 1000th episode of Impact, quite honestly. I thought that they had been a fine promotion. They made some terrible decisions. I give you that. But I thought there was a fine promotion. They just, whatever reason, they managed to work themselves backwards and got off of a major broadcast platform and then kind of worked themselves down to Access TV, which, you know, good for them that they're still on television. And that's one thing that Impact Wrestling can never be doubted on. They have fought to stay on the air one way or the other, and they've done it. For over 20 years now, they have fought to be on television one way or the other. So, yeah, I'm interested in that, and I'm interested in, as a sidebar for just all the other people that's popping back up. I mean, it's reading like it's going to be a fun show. Tracy Brooks is also coming back. She's going to be teaming up with her husband, Frankie Kazarian. And their opponents are going to be the also husband-wife duo of Eddie and Alicia Edwards, who Alicia Edwards, also a former wild superhero as Sassy Massey or something ridiculous like that. So you have got a lot of wrestling news and great wrestling that's coming up. Also, I guess we should point out, even though this isn't women's wrestling news, Team 3D is scheduled to return at Impact 1000. So, hey, it should be something interesting to watch. So let's move on. I think I've covered a lot of the outside news at this point. All the big things. That and I guess I should mention this. As of this recording, Bianca Belair reportedly is going to be absent due to requested time off. Now, they have not specified the reasons that she's going to be, and the timetable as it is reported right now is uncertain. Fightful Select has heard differing reasons as to how long she could be out, ranging from weeks to under a month. So it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit of time. I mean, they're basically saying it could be a short period of time. It could be a long period of time. I mean, it could just be that she just needs a break because she had been working pretty hard for the last couple of weeks, months, really. And this may just be the little sidebar, the little timeout that she needs. But again, it has not been reported as to why necessarily she's being taken off TV. She just is. And she was written off after a backstage attack by Damage Control. So that is the explanation as to why she would not be on television. But the explanation behind the scenes, again, that's kind of up in the air. I keep running across these little bit of notes that I had down and I forgot to talk about. After 812 days, Camille, the former NWA Women's World Champion, lost to Kenzie Page, who is the new reigning NWA Women's World Champion, and she won that at NWA 75 on night 2. It was an up and down weekend for her from what I had read, and I really wanted to watch this, but she walked into the pay-per-view on night 1 as the NWA Women's Television Champion. And she was brutalized and lost that championship to Max the Impaler. She came out later on in that night, about just a hair under an hour later, and she participated in the Burke Invitational Battle Royal, and she won that Battle Royal. Meanwhile, Camille wrestled and defended and defeated Natalie Markova to retain on night 1. This is where we go into night 2 because not Paige. I know she goes by Kenzie Henry Page, or however she has her little three-word name. But she came back the following night and she dethroned Camille, who is now in the top 10 longest reigns of NWA Women's Champions ever. And that's covering a lot of ground and a lot of decades. But this was Kenzie's night. And she is somebody also who should be applauded for her career up to this point. She has been one half of the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions, along with her former tag team partner at the time, Ella Envy. Then they added in a new member for Pretty Empowered, which freed up Kenzie to pursue Singular Goal. She was the television champion, the women's television champion, as I just said. And up until the first night of the NWA, she held on to that title. She lost the title one night, came back and won another one the next night. So this is one of those things I'm like, this is the faction that I like. And if you have not seen I forget what their specific name for it was, but it's a match where they had just a no-holds-barred street fight between Pretty Empowered and their opponents that night. That is how a street fight with women wrestlers should go. That is the way it should happen. And if you haven't seen it, you should seek it out. Just look at Women's Street Fight NWA. And you should be able to pull that up. But that right there, that match right there, puts any street fight, no holds barred, whatever type of non-rule match that WOW has ever created or participated in, it puts it to shame. It puts it to absolute shame because of how hard-hitting they were. It's like they went out of their way to prove that they belonged. And they did it. And it's when I see matches like that that make me pull back on how I feel about anything that goes on in WoW when they say like, this is going to be a brawl or whatever the case may be. It never lives up to the hype. Speaking of not living up to the hype, let's get up to the show. And let's get into the show and the matches. This episode is not vastly different than what we are used to, what we generally get with WoW. And by that I mean, I've said before, they have a bit of a template. And their template tends to be, we're going to recap what went on. We're going to talk about, the last week's main event. And then we'll go into what this week's main event is going to be. So it's one of those things. And this one was no different. This is just how it goes. So we can't be shocked or surprised. This is just, what they do and how they do it. Sorry. Had to get a little swig of coffee there. So let's go to the first match. First one being Exile and Ice Cold. I don't know why they just don't include her in Exile now. She's partnered up with them enough. Just be part of the group at this point. So it's Exile and Ice Cold taking on the Bully Busters / new generation of WoW. I don't know what they want to call this, but it's Jennifer Flores, it's Steffi Slays, and Keita Rush. This is, I have grown into being a fan of Exile. I fully admit that. I don't know if they get what they need in order to advance within that company. They have yet to explain where Malaya Hosaka went. They haven't had anybody say we kicked her out of the group, or she decided to leave, or she felt like we were fine on our own. Nothing. It just, Malaya Hosaka's gone, and it was unexplained, and it just went away. And all they do now when they reference her is they don't reference her by name. They reference her like they were brought in by a legend, which is fair. I don't blame the commentators for that because they can't really keep promoting Malaya Hosaka if Malaya Hosaka isn't there, or they probably could. They really aren't losing anything, but I can understand just on the principle of we don't want to keep promoting it, especially if there was some falling out. I'm not saying that's what happened, but especially if there was some sort of falling out, they probably just don't want to bring it up. So, but no, I like them as a unit. I think that they have advanced. I don't think that they're quite there yet, but they continue to grow and they continue to get better. And this is the best that I've seen Ice Cold. Ice Cold within the group of Exile seems to fit. Before, she just was kind of bounced around and she seemed like the odd person out in the teams or wherever she was at. And she always came across as so much smaller and tiny than everybody else. With Exile, for whatever reason, it's like she has grown into this group. And she works hard within this group. So I enjoy them. I wish they had more behind them. I wish they got the chance to do more. I wish they had a proper direction in front of them. But as it is right now, just on what they are, I think they're fine. So let's go into the match. This is the first match. This is an all tag team match, an all tag team episode, by the way. It's either 6-person or standard tag, but it's all tag team matches. So we've got Exile starting off with the baby faces, and Exodus started with Steffi Slays. Very, very crisp arm drag that she did. I think Genesis came in it, they almost started off like a babyface team. Like they came in and just arm dragged Steffi Slays, then tagged the next one arm dragged her. And then Ice Cold gets tagged in. She takes a headlock takedown. I was like, Steffi just walked into a series of problems. I expected that the other way around, but it worked for Steffi because it is the old, you do it to me a couple of times, and then she gets to, boom, come back, and she does the same thing in succession to Ice Cold. Arm drag, headlock takeover. So no problems there. No, the match, again, for the individuals involved, because I believe that most of them are not necessarily wrestlers that go and hit the circuit every weekend or, wrestle as much as possible. Steffi Slays and Keita Rush specifically I'm talking about. And maybe Ice Cold, because I have not found, not just Ice Cold, Exile in general. I have not found any indication that they do anything outside of WoW as of yet, but I hope they do, and it really wouldn't surprise me if they did. One thing that I think happened here, and I cannot prove this, but I believe that Exodus saved Keita Rush from a bad botch. I mean, Keita Rush got the tag, and she ran across, and it looked like she was going to go for what would have been a flying head scissors. And maybe it was meant to be this way. It just looked kind of awkward. But when she goes up for it, Exodus catches her and whips her around and just turns it into like a power slam. So either that was a pre-planned spot that went off without a hitch, or Exodus was quick on her feet. Whew, that was a hiccup. Sorry. Or Exodus was quick on her feet. Let's get that out. And was able to turn what was a bad situation into a good one. I mean, and she is not for nothing getting some execution down to what she does. Did a pancake slam on Flores, and it just, in my opinion, just fantastic execution there. Flores did a good job of selling everything. I said in one of the previous episodes pertaining to Flores that she's good at what she does, and she has, for better or worse, settled into the role of being the resident punching bag of WoW. I'm not saying that to be mean, but I'm saying she oftentimes is there to take the fall, make the opposition look good, things like that. And she does a fine job with it. So I don't want to discount her ability or any of their abilities. They try pretty hard, but sometimes you have these matches that I was like, they probably did not need to have this on national television. It should have been in a indie show or a gym or something somewhere. But this is the match that this was for Exile. This was for Exile here. When they got the chance to show some tandem moves, some weren't all that crisp. I will admit. As much as I may like them, it's like they're still ironing out what tandem moves we can use and what we can't, what looks good, what doesn't. And it takes me right back to what I was saying. Like, these are the things that if you had, I can't expect them to do house shows. But if Exile was working elsewhere off TV, that'd be a great time to practice that. That'd be a great time to try it. I don't think that this is the time for that, because as some of those tandem moves sound like they would be good on paper, I don't think they execute quite as well in practice. So anyway, but they were decent tandem moves from Exile. Getting towards the end, and it should be noted that Ice Cold did a fine job here as well. I no longer see her as some sort of outcast to the group or a weak link. Damn, did I say that? A weak weak link. Damn. Say it right. So I no longer view her as either one of those things. She seems to do very well within that group. That's why I'm like, this may be where she belongs. And if that's the case, it might do well for them to change her outfit, at least the color scheme. Exile's in all black and she's in blue and silver. Just at least add a little black to the outfit. Maybe on the trim or something like that. You ain't got to get rid of the blue and the silver or the blue and the white or whatever it is. But at least add a little black to it so that she looks like she's within the group. I mean, officially within the group. So at the end of the match, we've got Slays and Flores who are taken out on the outside, assumably by not Exodus, Genesis. I don't know how she managed to get both of them, but she certainly cut down on Slays. Meanwhile, in the ring, you've got Ice Cold being catapulted over her partner and on top of Keita Rush to drop an elbow. It's another one of those moments when I'm saying it kind of sounds good on paper, didn't really land with me in execution. I understood where they were going with it, and I know that they needed their own, finish. I probably would say let's try something else. I don't know if this works well, but again, good on paper, maybe not so much in execution. But that was all it took. The catapulted elbow drop onto the chest and sternum of Keita Rush, and there you have it. Exile wins, and they win clean. They didn't use any foreign objects or cheat the referee or anything like that. It was a clean win. After the match, they cut a promo. The promo largely seems like it's aimed at David McLean, demanding title shots. And they're complaining about a lack of opportunity. Now, I do not know if they've even attempted to go after the tag titles before. I would assume not, since they're a heel team. And the heels had the tag team titles preceding this. It was largely Miami's Sweet Heat, and I don't believe that during that brief period of time that Coach Campanelli and Ra were the tag team champions. I don't think Exile went after them either. So I don't know where the complaint is, but let's go with it. They have not had the opportunity to get the tag titles. They could always spin that around and say, we tried to work up the ranks. We did everything we were supposed to do. We stayed quiet. But every time that we win, we don't see our names getting pushed up on the leaderboard, or we don't go up in the rankings or anything like that. We've earned a title shot, and we haven't got it. Something along those lines. This is maybe the closest I've heard them to a proper promo and something that wasn't necessarily a string of nonsense. They actually had a goal in what they wanted and how they wanted it. We want the championship. We want opportunities. We want to be we're good enough to be the tag team champions. And then, of course, like I said, all of this is aimed at David McLean, which goes back to, I feel he needs to step away from that commentating booth, despite the fact that AJ Mendez is leaving. Get somebody else to fill that spot. But he needs to leave that commentating booth and just be the matchmaker guy. Just do that. He doesn't need to have to do every other job that WoW has. He don't have to be the in-ring interviewer and the lead commentator and the matchmaker. He doesn't have to do all of those things. Get somebody else in there to do it. So, but in this case, his matchmaker hat is on, and he's like, "What are you talking about? You didn't get an opportunity. You had a great match." Just has a back and forth with them. I hope that this does not become Exile versus David McLean, because that's what it feels like it might go to, because it is the same thing that Lana Starr did years ago with David McLean, where her feud wasn't with any person. it was a feud with David McClain. It was like every week she came out there complaining about this is the Law and the Star show and I'm taking over and blah, blah, blah. And it never went anywhere. It was just her versus Dave McClain, and there was no out to that, which is why I'm like, I hope that doesn't repeat just for the sake of I want to be on TV and, they can have something to complain to me about. They need to just move on from that. The next segment is a preview of Samantha Smart's team taking on Foxy Fierce and, Candy Crush, which would be the following segment after this one. G.I. Jane and the Disciplinarian with Samantha Smart taking on Foxy Fierce and Candy Crush. This is apparently a feud that was built over Fierce and Crush getting marketing opportunities with WoW. This was a poor reason to get into a feud. And this is also where this show is starting to spiral down. You had to one because there wasn't a lot of backup to that. Didn't need a lot. It was Exile and Ice Cold versus the Bully Busters and Flores. And they connected it to something else, which they should keep doing when this is over. Hopefully they won't drop it. But they cut a promo at the end to further Exile and what Exile's doing and who they're with and what their goal is. Here, this was explained entirely by the commentating team. It's the same thing they do when they have to try to patch the holes and fill in the blanks. And this is another one. This is a fill in the blank. Candy Crush and Fox Fierce got the chance to go worldwide and talk about WoW. And Samantha Smarts is mad about it. She's jealous and she wants the opportunities for us. It's a case of jealousy over silly stuff. Maybe if it was they got the opportunity to go on some major show, I could see that. Oh my gosh, they got the chance to participate in, I don't know, Big Brother or The Challenge, or they're showing up at the Dragon Con convention, just the two of them, or you know what I mean? Something where it could reasonably look like you have a just cause to be jealous. There's no cause for Samantha Smart, the Disciplinarian, or G.I. Jane to be jealous about Foxy Fierce and Candy Crush getting the chance to do interviews about WoW. Because I'm sure the opportunity to do that extends to all of them. But they're not going to say that on air because that defeats the narrative. And even if it didn't extend all of them, why should they care? Did they get paid more if they get to do these things? I doubt it. But this is what it was about. This is what this match is built over. It's built over I'm jealous of you and I want to be able to go around and do the press and the media and all this stuff. This is about as dumb a reason to get into a wrestling match as when Booker T and Edge were having a WrestleMania match over a shampoo commercial in Japan. That was the premise of their match, a shampoo commercial. This is just as silly. We're going to be mad about you going around promoting this show that we're all on, and hopefully if you get people to watch it, we'll all make extra money. But I'm still mad about that. So that was what this feud is over. And there's really no point in just going into the entirety of the match. One thing I can say that I like that they do that others do not, Sophia Lopez in particular, they come out and they are heels from the moment they come out that curtain to the moment that bell rings. At the beginning and the end. They come out mean mugging. They don't shake any hands. They frowning upon the kids and the people in the front row. Samantha Smart's giving them lip. That's what you're supposed to do. They came out as heels and they presented as heels. And I think they deserve credit for that, particularly when everybody in that show does not seemingly get the memo that you're a heel or not. So, without going into everything, this is a decent match. We've paired Fierce and Candy Crush off. Fierce is more or less where I expect her to be. Candy Crush is spinning her wheels. When this revamp, reboot, whatever you want to call it, started up, she was in a high-profile angle, albeit the angle was dumb, and it didn't end with any sort of conclusive means. She was at least profiled and featured quite a bit. Now she's just there until they find something else for her to do. Like, she had a match for the championship that David McLean himself granted her, despite the fact that they said you got to go through Vicky Lynn and you got to be approved by Lana Starr. That none of those things happened. David McLean comes in and he cried over this, that he was giving her the championship shot that she deserves. He cried on camera for that. Nothing wrong with that, but you would think that it would mean something like, okay, well, I didn't get it. I need to be going back after the championship. And that's apparently not happening. At least not right now. So that's the extent of the angles and storylines that go in there. It's like this is all over a feud over marketing and Candy Crush is spinning her wheels. Those are the two notable points here. One of the things I would say that Foxy Fierce, if there's a portion of the match that seems like she maybe isn't paying attention, she does her dancing number. The disciplinarian comes in and charges. Foxy ducks underneath and practically stands directly in the corner of her opposition dancing around. Fortunately for G.I. Jane, she thought ahead or it was planned, but she at least reached out and tried to grab her hair. Like, you're too close. Why are you in this corner? Why would you even want to be in this corner dancing around? Like, you're in danger over here. And she had no problem just going over there like it was no big deal. And not only went over there, but she went there all in their corner. So, again, that could very well have been something that they planned to do. Didn't seem like it. And if it's Jane, I would hope that it was a case of her instincts kicking in, because that would show real improvement. We're going to skip down to the end of this match because there's really not a lot here. This is a cold match with an angle that doesn't mean anything and probably not going anywhere. So, at the end, the disciplinarian tosses Foxy Fierce out. Now, Candy Crush is the legal person in this equation. They had their little schmoz that took place in the ring between all four people. The last thing being is when Fierce gives a rear end to the G.I. Jane that puts her down. The disciplinarian tosses Fierce out. And then bouncing off of the ropes and getting a good running start, Candy Crush flies across or runs across, and she nails the disciplinarian in the mouth with that big Superwoman punch, or the Candy Crusher, or whatever they call it. And the disciplinarian didn't so much drop to the mat as she crumbled to the mat. Like, she took that hit and just kind of slowly dropped down. So, yeah, this was all right. That's that's pretty much what I could give it. This was all right. It started going down just because of the reasoning behind this match. The reasoning behind this match seemed very silly. Like, you're going to feud over that? Really? Anyway, the next segment is a preview of next week's main event, Princess Aussie taking on Penelope Pink. The narrative of that package being that Aussie's been chasing the title, which she has not. I guess we would say chasing it within the last 3 to 4 weeks, sure, but they try to make it sound like this has been her goal and she's been going after this thing all along. No, I don't think so. But for the sake of the show, you just go with it. That was the first disputable thing. The last match, that was the first disputable thing that we had going on here. This match coming up is the next. It is Fury, Holiday, and Siren the Voodoo Doll against Americana and Spring Break 24/7. Now, keep in mind here that Fury allegedly was no longer able to have her own partners come out there with her to the ring. Razor was banned. Mesmeriah was banned, which caused her to have to seek out new partners. What I didn't understand is the Heavy Metal Sisters and the Dark Side, we will affectionately call them, were engaged in a blood feud a couple of months ago. Now, it's not impossible that people who are in blood feuds turn around and tag up together. It happens all the time. It's pro wrestling. That's how wrestling works. But it is also another case of the commentators having to address a rivalry that the viewers never saw. They're addressing the rivalry between the Heavy Metal Sisters and the Dark Side to paint the picture of the distrust that could exist there. My question here is not necessarily that they tagged, but what would make Fury go to them? Of all the people that's on the roster that they might have been able to ask, that they might have been able to get the tag up with them, why would you go to them? For what reason? It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me as to why she's like, oh yeah, these people that we fought against, let's go get them. They go tag with me. Why was Holiday and Siren the Voodoo Doll agreeing to this? Didn't they hate them? Why was Razor and Mesmeriah not there? For what reason were they suspended or banned from ringside? I can understand, and this is the part of it that doesn't make sense to me. Razor and Mesmeriah have been out for every one of Fury's matches in the last couple of weeks. When they weren't her tag team partner, and they would just interfere and do whatever, as they were out there as managers and seconds or valets or whatever you want to call them. I can understand the ref or David McClain saying, hey, look, y'all can't do this because you're interfering all the time. But this is a match where they were going to be her tag partners. Why would they remove her tag partners away from her? That makes no sense. Why would they turn around and ban them now when they don't need to be banned now? We're going into a 6-person tag. It's not like they're going to be out on ringside and able to cheat again. In that environment, when they were just at ringside, yeah, I can get it. This is Fury's match. You don't need to be there. But this is a 6-person tag. It is pretty much a layup for the Heavy Metal Sisters. So why would they be banned? Doesn't make sense. So this match is carrying on as the referees, as the commentators try to explain this. Now, the other bit of the story that gets explained here, and I have to bring this up because this is just awful. And I can't even describe it any other. This is awful. The other angle that is within this match is Americana. And Americana looking to get even, allegedly, with the Heavy Metal Sisters, despite the fact that only one of them of the three is here. So she recruits the Dark Side. They come out to help, I guess. Fury take on her opponents. Spring Break 24/7 and Americana. Who, you know, the clear and present baby faces in this match. We will go down towards the end because everything else that took place in this match is non-important. So, there's a portion of the match where Americana gets in, she does a move and gets right back out. I mean, she does a backwards flip into an elbow and tags right back out. It's the one move she did before she does her second and final move of the match. Spring Break 24/7 pretty much carried the load for the baby faces here. And Americana stood out there and watched. She did those two moves, and that was it. That was it. So, let's get to where this thing starts to break down. At some point in the match, and I say some point because this was an argument over nothing. I mean, and that's not an exaggeration. This was a literal argument over nothing. You had Fury, who was already in the ring, and she was taking on whoever was there. She dumps out Sandy Shore, you know, by grabbing her by the hair and spiking her, you know, back of the head first into the mat. Americana takes out Fury. That's when Siren comes in and clotheslines Crystal Waters. And then for whatever reason, as she clotheslines Crystal Waters, Fury seemingly has a problem with it. For no reason. It's not like she hit her by accident, but she has a problem, like, and she's getting in her face about, like, what are you attacking her for, and whatever. When she does that, Siren turns Fury around, and Fury walks into a spine buster from Holiday. Holiday spikes her, and then the Dark Side, Siren, and Holiday walk off. They leave her. And then we get back to the revenge factor. Because now Fury's in there by herself. Spring Break 24/7 pulls her towards their corner. Americana gets up on the top rope, and she does her second move of the match. She does a moonsault and gets the pin. And the commentators are, and she's got her revenge for them breaking little Levi's tablet and putting her friend out of wrestling. This is where I was like, seriously? Are you kidding me? In this person's universe, her tag team partner's leg was broken to the point that she cannot wrestle again. And her son, not just some person she met, her son had his tablet smashed, allegedly, because they never showed any of this, by the Heavy Metal Sisters. And I'm looking at this. First off, how is this some level of revenge for her? She did two moves. She didn't get all of the Heavy Metal Sisters. She got one, and she didn't even do much there. It was just a regular match. It didn't feel like a woman who was out to get revenge. It didn't come off like that in the least. I have, at points, possibly been unfair to Americana because of how I perceive her as a wrestler. Not as a person, but as a wrestler. And this did nothing to help that image. It was like I can't work, I'm hurt, and I need to do the bare minimum in this ring. Which is what she did. She did the bare minimum of being in a tag match with Spring Break 24/7. Stand there, smile, hug, and, wink and whatever. That's basically it. But if this is the blow off for this heavy metal sisters angle that Americana was in, then this is bad. This is so bad. And I don't even know how else to describe that other than this is bad. And it shouldn't have gotten there. How is this a blow off to some heated rivalry? It's not. So you have that. I really hope that if there's some revenge match that's coming, that they hurry up and get this over with. I am completely losing faith in Americana. And then the other side of this coin is the argument from nowhere with Fury yelling at Siren the Voodoo Doll over nothing, because it's not like Siren did anything to her. She didn't clothesline her. She didn't mess up. She didn't cause a near pinfall or a loss for the team by accident. None of those things happened. But, they go where they go, I guess. This was passable if you're watching it just for the first time and you just want to get used to WoW. This, however, is not passable if you had any inclination as to who these three individuals are and why they're there. If that is what you walked into this match with, that match should have been very disappointing. It should have been very disappointing, because there's no way that if you paid attention to this show that this could be entertaining. And especially when the commentators are trying to push their narrative of, oh, yeah, and she's got revenge for all of the. No, there's no revenge here. There is no revenge. Anyhow, next segment is a video package recapping how Sweet Heat became the tag team champions and their title reign. That video package also included a promo by the Heat. When they do their shtick, they can be a little bit overblown, and they can be a bit grating on the nerves at times. But at least they do promos, when the vast majority of the people out on WoW don't. At least they have that to lean on, regardless of how over the top, regardless of how cartoony. At least they do them. And I think that should be commended. This package also covers the other half of the package also covers the Tonga Twins and their pursuit of the Tag Team Championship. And they also cut a promo at the end of that, which is far better. This match is as spoken by Dave McClain, it's a falls count anywhere, no time limit, and no DQ match. Let's see how much of that they actually maintain when they get to it. But those were the examples. Is no time limit, no DQ. It's just a series of matches. And I keep saying that, but that's what it is. 3 of these 4 matches are just matches. The 4th match, however, is the main event. It's Miami's Sweet Heat taking on the Tonga Twins. So, now we get to our main event. The highly touted Falls Count Anywhere, no time limit, no DQ for Miami's Sweet Heat versus the Tonga Twins for the WoW Tag Team Championships. And you know what? I might as well just go ahead and tell you now, this show's an F. This is an absolute fail. And I haven't had one of those since that dreaded episode 25. But this is an absolute fail for me. The video, and I'll get into why. I mean, G.I. Jane and the disciplinarian taking on Fox Fierce and Candy Crush, that kind of pulled the show down based on this absurd angle that they tried to insert into this match. But that didn't totally do it. The sixth person with Fury, Holiday, and Siren Voodoo Doll had a lot going wrong with it. Not the match, but why were the other members of Heavy Metal Sisters banned? Is this argument that started up from nowhere going to lead to another lengthy rivalry between the Dark Side and the Heavy Metal Sisters? I hope not. And then this is a lame blow off to what was supposed to have been a heated rivalry from Americana. Like, if that is all it takes for you to feel like you're justified and you've gotten even, then they need to pull her off of TV and put her someplace else until she can get it. Or then they need to talk. If it wasn't her decision, the people backstage need to get some other people backstage, because this was not how that rivalry should have been blown. But all of that leading to this main event is what just took the taco. This video opens up with Dave McClain saying that Lana Starr figured that the Heat don't need her help, which is why she and Vicky Lynn McCoy chose not to accompany them to the ring. Now let's think about that for a second before we even go into the match. That was the first thing I was like, seriously? They chose not to show up. Not they were banned. Not that they had to be handcuffed at ringside or put in a cage so they couldn't interfere. None of that. They decided on their own, despite the fact that she's been there for every other championship match and she's had to stick her nose in a good portion of them. And there's always been this level of we got to do what we got to do to maintain the championships. But now, against this team who has theoretically chased them for the better portion of 12 months, now they are, we don't need to be out there for them. They can handle it on their own. Even though the last time they were in the ring with the Tonga Twins, the last time that they defended the titles against the Tonga Twins, it took Vicky Lynn McCoy to get in there and clip one of the twins and cause disqualification so they can maintain the titles. But now they're perfectly fine with them defending on their own. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. When it would have been just as easy to say, this is a no disqualification match, but we have one rule that we are enforcing. Only one. And that's Lana Starr and Vicky Lynn McCoy and any other representative of the Fabulous Four are not allowed at ringside. Anybody that comes in and interferes on either team's behalf, because they're going to make it fair if you're a general manager, anybody that comes in on either team's behalf and does something for their benefit, whether they are part of your crew or not, either will be fired from WoW or persecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Simple. Simple. Why would you have a situation where this makes no sense? Like, oh yeah, they just decided not to be here. What? So that's the first problem with this match. The second problem is this is announced as a Falls Count Anywhere match. There isn't a single effort for a fall on that floor or anywhere in the building like they made it out. This could go all night, and I knew the second and I was hoping I was wrong. I was so hoping that I would be wrong here. I promised you I was hoping I was wrong. But I knew the second he said it's going to go all night and it's going to go all over the building, it's like none of those things are going to happen. None of those things are going to happen. They're not going to go all over the building, and they're not going to be all night long. For them to accomplish that, it would have at least taken them saying, hey, we're going to just bump at least 3 of these matches off of the show, and it's just going to be Tonga Twins versus the Carlson Twins. And I knew they were never going to do that. Never. It was going to fit neatly within the hour, just like every other episode does. So I don't know why this Falls Count Anywhere thing was brought up. I don't know why he got in there and tried to say it. I don't know why he promoted that with such excitement, like he was proud to bring it to people, when it's another case of you making promises that you can't keep. This is just another case of that. Wow, making promises that they can't keep. They advertised for this and they vaguely got it. If it was just a no holds barred, no count out, no count out, no disqualification match, if that were the case on its own, it would make more sense. But them tossing in this Falls Count Anywhere match when they were never going to have falls that count anywhere, why even bother to say it? Why? And that's not a knock on anybody that took place in the match. But they're giving this stipulation that didn't hold up and it just didn't even exist. So for what? They went out onto the floor as the Tonga Twins double clotheslined the Miami Sweet Heat, and they did fight on the floor. But as I said, no one went for any sort of cover or pin on the floor or any place other than that ring. So I don't know what this Falls Count Anywhere nonsense was supposed to be about. But it just didn't do anything for me. Nothing. And when I read the comments, I'm like, only the indoctrinated WoW fans would look at this and be like, oh, this is the greatest thing I ever saw. So at some point in the match, Miami's Sweet Heat goes backstage and they get 2 conveniently located trash cans, which apparently was sitting right there by the curtains of the entrance. So they get the trash cans and they don't use the entire trash cans. They just get the trash cans and then take the lids off and, I guess try to use them. And they being Miami Sweet Heat, do crack the Tongans with the trash can lids a couple of times. I was impressed that they got that far. That they decided to use something other than stupid mirrors and had a weapon of some sort of substance to some degree. Now, I know in wrestling, the primary reason that those trash cans get used is because they like the sound. And they bend easy. They provide you a good sound effect. They bend easy. And they're not overly painful. That's a lot of the reason that you get those steel trash cans, not the plastic kind, those steel drum trash cans. So they got to use that a couple of times. Good on them. But again, this was so pre-planned and where they had stuff arranged. Like I said, the trash cans were seemingly very conveniently placed by the curtains of the door because they went 2 feet into there, and then they just returned, and they had trash cans in their hands. Then they slipped out of the ring, and then, what do you know, it's 2 steel chairs, conveniently 2 of them, sitting here under the ring by the entrance. So there we go, more conveniently placed stuff. And that pretty much is the extent of this raucous brawl that the Tonga Twins and the Carlson Twins had. It didn't really do all that much. And the chairs were almost pointless. They never got a chance to swing them. When they brought them into the ring, they got them kicked into their faces. And then it was just the use of the trash can lids. Now, the chairs did come into play A little bit later on, they go back out in the ring and they start fighting again on the floor. Again, remember, there is no pinfall that took place in this dynamic brawl that they had. And the Tongans and the Heat, I felt, did as good as they could do, but there's only so much that they could do. There's only so much that they could do when I'm 90% sure that WoW has parameters on them that prevent them from being overly violent. So at the end of the match, now this is the worst part of the match here. The end, the finish. So picture, if you will, the Tongan twins are down and pretty much split up. One of them's on the floor, one of them's in the ring. And the Coulson twins have the one in the ring, of course. Lindsay, the blonde of the twins, the Coulson twins, sets up both of the chairs in seated positions next to each other, like facing each other. Apparently, because they wanted to do one of their new finish and slingshot one of the Tongans into the chairs for the knockout. Not a bad plan, right? So Lindsay goes behind the chairs and she's waiting for her sister, Laurie, to toss whichever Tongan, we're going to say Chaos, into the waiting arms of her sister so they can put the match away. But then Chaos comes back in the ring. So now, being all of 4 feet in front of her, Lindsay has to stand there and act like she's so stupefied that the Tongan twins are in there that she does not know what to do. She stands there for 10, 20, 30 seconds just watching them try to throw her out of the ring. And when I say try, I mean they really was trying to throw out of the ring. Like, it took 3 times to get that spot right. So the longer that this took, it only made Lindsay look like a bigger idiot for having to stand there and watch her sister get pummeled and thrown out of the ring. The first time they tried to throw Laurie out of the ring, her head caught the top rope. So that was the first fail. She didn't go out. Second time they tried to throw over the top rope, she seemed like she was trying to make a jump over there, but not really. So they turn her, or one of them turns her and gets her to the rope, and she didn't go anywhere. She just kind of goes to the corner. And then the third time was the charm, where you get one of them and they don't even get close to the ropes when they throw out. She just launches herself out and over the top rope. And like I said, keep in mind that while this is going on, Lindsay has to stand there and act like this invisible force field is preventing her from doing anything to stop this whatsoever. This looked bad on screen. It looked bad. So you've got that's going on. And, of course, the steel chairs come into place because now Lindsay's in the ring by herself. They do a double flapjack, dropping her face first on both of the chairs, which sends her out to the floor, which now opens it up for the one that they threw out to the floor, Laurie, to come back in. So the Tonga twins set the steel chairs down, and I am going to assume that there's probably a mandate on we can't have you swinging steel chairs at each other because we don't want steel chairs being swung. So they never swung them. Those chairs never swung and hit anybody. They were always placed somewhere that they can be slammed on. So I guess that was their workaround. Lindsay's outside the ring after being flapjacked face first into the chairs. Laurie gets back in. And now the Tonga twins hoist her up on their shoulders. And they do the Tongan Samoan drop / neckbreaker combo. And there we have it. They do this on top of the chairs. Boom. They nail it. And she took a good hit. I have to say, she went down that thing hard. And that was it. That was the end of the match. This was a good outcome. The outcome was good. The match was not. The match was nonsensical in terms of what they set it up with. The match had botches in it, and the match underdelivered. It underdelivered on this big hype that David McLane went in there and, it's going to be all night long, and you're going to do that whole day. It underdelivered. Their best match that Miami Sweet Heat and the Tonga Twins had was their second one. The second match that they had for the championships, the one that they got cheated out of, that was probably the best match that they had of the three. And this only gets ruined by the efforts that David McLane in particular made to try to make this big and bigger than what it was. And I'm sorry, it failed. It failed, and it failed miserably. It did not do what it should have did. Now, I know there's going to be people that are going to love this match, and I don't fault anybody for that. Everything is subjective, but I have made it clear the times that I give WOW problems or things like that or criticize them heavily is when they make things like this happen, when they promise things or they promote things that they have no means of delivering. It is the singular reason why I say episode 25 is the worst episode that they've done. They promised for weeks what they were going to do and they couldn't deliver. Here, a promise was made and it kind of got delivered, but not really. Nothing really happened there. And then you had these botches that took place in the match. And like I said, it just kind of under-delivered there. I don't know what else I can say about it. I don't know what else I can say. I know some people are like, this is a great match. But that's it. And if you go and you look, you'll see the varying comments of people that are like, this is the best women's wrestling, or this is the best wrestling on TV today, and stuff like that. But no, it ain't. And this was not a good representation of that. I don't have any issues or problems with either team. I actually like them both, but this match did none of them. None of the four of them. It did not do anyone any favors because of what they did and how they set it up and how nonsensical it is. I mean, just the idea that Lana Starr, despite the fact that she has gone out of her way to try to maintain her championships and interfere or step in, or they're going to have to be approved by me, and Vicky Lynn, they got to get past her. And all. Despite all of that, somehow somebody made the decision like, she just decided not to show up because they can handle it on their own. Really? They can handle this on their own? Apparently not. But, that's WOW for you. That's WOW. It doesn't need to make sense long term. It just needs to make sense today. That's pretty much all they're looking for out of that show. It doesn't need to make sense in the weeks leading up to it. Doesn't need to make sense on the day of when you look back on the weeks leading up to it. All they want is for it to make some semblance of sense that day. And once they move past that, it's forgotten about. They move on. Doesn't matter. This episode, excluding the first match, had a lot of holes in it. As I said, The G.I. Jane disciplinary match, Fox Fierce Candy Crush, is a ridiculous reason for them to start this angle. The 6-person Fury Holiday, Siren of Voodoo Doll versus Americana Spring Break and Spring Break 24/7. It doesn't even begin to explain why Fury is tagged with him in the first place, and why, of all the times to ban her partners, would they ban them from a tag match? Banning them from being at ringside, I can understand, but why would they ban them from being in a tag match? That's what they are. They're tag team partners. So what are you banning them for? Especially when you're going to stick her in a 6-person tag. That makes no sense. And then, of course, the main event. And I just went through all the things that was just wrong there. That was wrong and lets you know that they really expect you to have the attention span of a flea. Because if you don't remember what I said, you can't call me out on what I said. I can do it because I write these things down and I take notes and I pay attention. But overall, their fans do not give a crap. They don't watch it for the long build of angles and storylines to get to wherever it is that they're going. They just don't. It's just, this looks good now. And that's all they're concerned with. But yeah, where was that whole thing going? This was an underwhelming championship win. Looked good on camera when they dropped the confetti and all that stuff like that. That part of it looks great, but this was very, very, very underwhelming. I sincerely hope, because they've already begun advertising, next week is going to be Penelope Pink defending the title against Princess Aussie. Now we get to see, okay, are they going to do this again? Is he going to overhype this thing to the point that this ruins the match? Or is the match going to over-deliver? I'm tending to lean the other way. That is not going to deliver all that well. But we will find out, and time will tell. Hopefully, and I say hopefully, that main event match will be better. And it will make more sense. But I guess we'll find that out when it actually airs. So we'll keep our eyes open and we'll take a look. I'm definitely going to watch, and see how this works out and whether it takes Princess Aussie somewhere or not. Before I go, I just want to point out some notes I was making, because I said in, I think, last week's podcast that I was thinking about doing a year in review for WoW. And as I was doing that research and as I was going through matches and episodes and going back over my notes and all that stuff, I noticed that I had developed a list of incomplete angles and storylines that took place in a while. Things that were never talked about, things that just weren't addressed, some important, some not. But, they were just things that, regardless of the level of importance, it would have been nice to hear why this thing happened. And I just want to go over a couple of them, real quick. So this is my list of angles and storylines in WoW that are incomplete or dropped off for no reason. And I probably will add more to this as time goes on. Maybe, considering this episode is probably going to be very easy to do, but I will endeavor to add more of these. But I just want to get, just to kind of paint the picture of what has been going on here. And that was another swig of coffee. Sorry. Okay, so the first one is Princess Aussie gets free of Darkseid's control. Now, unless you looked at the unaired season a while, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but I used this one because they brought it up this season that she was under the sway of the dark side, even though they never told anybody how she escaped it. She was allegedly under some sort of spell and doing their bidding whenever they wanted them to do their bidding. This was when they had the Heavy Metal Sisters and the Dark Side feuding, which is why I'm like, I hope they don't go back into the same angle. We've already done it. Needs to, they need to move on. But her being in their control and then just showing back up one day and everything's perfectly fine, incomplete angle. Never brought it up, never explained it. Speaking of angles that took place in the unaired season, Jesse Jones and I hate the name, but the Dixie Darlings went into tag team championships. Never mentioned, never explained why Jesse Jones didn't have the tag team. Why did they have to go into another? Well, and maybe let me correct myself because Jesse Jones mentioned it. And she's probably the only thing that made that even come off as remotely connective tissue. But they won the tag team championships and then it just went away. Never to be explained. But never to explain why they had to vacate. And they just said, oh, yeah, wow, they had to leave. But Jesse Jones was still there. Why wasn't she able just to find her new tag team partner? The Beast losing the championship to Tessa Blanchard. Now, this one I understand because Tessa isn't there. But nevertheless, it is still an incomplete end. They never explained how the Beast got that belt back. She lost it. Dave McClain was yelling on camera, "You're not yet the champion. You're not yet the champion." He was doing that, and then they just came back on TV, and the Beast just had the belt again. Why Chainsaw left the dark side? Not explained. Angelica Dante shows back up and then Chainsaw's with her. And if that on camera is her sister, I can understand it. But at the same time, she was part of, the Monster Squad along with Siren the Voodoo Doll and the Holodead. And she just left. Just no explanation to it. She just stopped teaming with him. And moved on. Never explained. Candy Crush's quest for her gloves. Even though she actually won and could have got her gloves back, after weeks of trying to get them, she suddenly decided that I don't need them anymore. It was one of the most underwhelming angles I've ever seen. One of the single most underwhelming angles that I've ever seen. It's like, why did I even get myself invested in this? If they were just going to turn around and be like, the power was within you or whatever. I mean, good Lord. Terrible. Why Commander Spars turned heel as Amber Rodriguez? Never explained. They tried to do some loose-knit explanation like, oh, yeah, she was jealous or, whatever. But no, for the most part, this is not explained. The Heavy Metal Sisters addressed a situation between the Bully Busters that never aired back in episode 5. There was a point in time the Bully Busters the Heavy Metal Sisters cut a promo on the Bully Busters having problems. And problems to the point that, well, you can't get in an argument with us when you're arguing amongst yourselves, that type of thing. Never went anywhere because there was never any effort to try to get into the Bully Busters history. There was never any effort to have the Bully Busters show back on screen or illustrate what they're talking about. Those things just did not happen. You notice in the pattern here. Reina Del Rey gave up on winning the title after the Beast's injury. In a kayfabe universe, when you got Reina Del Rey, who was as close to winning the championship as she was, you would think that she would be demanding that she just be given the title or that I get a chance to compete for it or something. I was one win away. I was close. I could feel it. I was about to beat her, and y'all took that away from me. So there's nothing that they really did to push any of this for Del Rey. She just kind of hopped back and forth from one thing to the next. She said something about the title, but then she in the same breath she said something about the tag team title. So her focus has been split apparently. Where did Malaya Hosaka go? I brought that up earlier. She just gone. Not explained. Just disappeared. Why do they have qualifiers for matches that went nowhere? Talked about that too. When you have people that were in the match, Penelope Pink we'll use as the example, who had the qualifier match and lost. But then she suddenly shows back up in the Gauntlet Battle Royal. And the announcers excused this as, well, she got a lucky wild card draw, or, something ridiculous like that. Advertise what they can't deliver. That's the last one I'm gonna use today, because that one they've done a bit, and I've just explained to you like two of them. Advertising, we're going to do a Gauntlet Battle Royal, and the winner, that's going to be the Wild Champion. The one that Penelope Pink won was no Gauntlet Battle Royal. It was just Battle Royal. Everybody was already in the ring. As far as we are concerned, we watched. It might have been a gauntlet for the people that were there, but when you're dealing with a TV product and that TV product requires them to do something dynamic week in and week out. I can only imagine that trying to come up with a stipulation, a match, a combination of opponent, or whatever the case may be, I can only imagine that is not easy. So I don't want to paint this picture like, they should just do this better, But what they can do is not be hyping up these things that cannot exist within the parameters of WoW. It's hard enough for them to try to make the next main event interesting, and the next main event, and the next main event, and the next main event. This is a weekly thing that they have to do. It's hard enough to make that, to make that work and to produce one week in and week out. But to have, that and then get on TV and boast, for lack of a better term, how big and grandiose this is going to be. The match that's going to, rock this building. We're going to go all night. It's going to be Falls Count and all that stuff. That seems like they haven't thought that through. Even though, again, I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to produce or come up with those matches. But it seems to me like that wasn't thought through. Like they didn't quite have their handle on what we want to do with these individuals in these matches. Should we even do these matches? My answer would be no. They probably should not do those matches if you can't deliver. And these are taped shows. They know what they are delivering and what they're not. And if you can't get there, if you are at a point where your delivery system, your editors cannot cut this to make it look that way, or your wrestlers have to work within the parameters of WoW, so you can't be pinned on the floor. I can't imagine why. But if you're going to have, let's just use the match that we just saw. If you're going to have a stipulation that says it's a Falls Count Anywhere match, then you probably should at least tease falls actually counting anywhere. But that never happens. Never takes place. So those are the things. That's my little list of incomplete / dropped off angles and storylines and what have you. We will tune in next week. They are advertising for the Wild Championship. So you could quite possibly get the Fabulous Four going down in flames within 2 weeks. Possible. Time will tell. And on that note, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Women's Pro Wrestling Network and its podcast, The Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. I want to thank you for those who subscribe and those who like the video. That does help. It helps push us up in the algorithm. If you haven't done it, like the video. It helps. It helps get us more attention, more eyeballs on the product. And you know, how great is that we can get those in every once in a while. And we will all be looking out. I will be looking out specifically for the next one up, Penelope Pink and Princess Aussie, 1-on-1 for the Wild Championship. So on that note, we will end this out now, and I will say what I always say, that this is Mr. Green saying, so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.